Story 1. I'm a fairly good swimmer, and I wanted to swim in a river where the current seemed really tame. Boy, was I wrong. Just a small moving body of water dragged my poor body like a leaf in the wind. Story 2. Paracetamol. In one of the dumbest moments of my life, I misread 50 milligrams when it was 500 milligrams. Took far too much. Long story short, almost a week in hospital. Story 3. Intuition. If something feels wrong, stop. It doesn't matter if it's stepping out onto a snow-covered slope, pulling up to a questionable gas station, or putting too small a piece of wood in a table router. Listen when your brain tells you, this is a bad idea. Story 4. Heat. Your sanity is the first thing to go in heat stroke. You aren't even aware anything is wrong. You just know you're angry, there's a weird buzzing sensation in your head and chest, and the world doesn't feel right. And then you're like a zombie looking for anything to cool off with, and shortly after that, you're unconscious. It escalated too quickly for half a dozen rational adults to notice before exhaustion set in. Heat will kill you quicker than you think. Story 5. Precipitation when it is cold outside. I got caught in a snowstorm in Shenandoah National Park in March 2019. It was 50 degrees in the valley, but I got 2 feet of snow on the top of the ridge. The forecast did not call for any precipitation that day. I was hiking on the Appalachian Trail and thought that a few flurries were nothing to worry about. I left a lean-to shelter that would have kept me dry and protected from the wind. I hiked less than 6 miles and was struggling to move forward because the snow was so deep. I was soaked to the bone, freezing cold, and beginning to lose fine muscle control in my fingers. The trail followed the side of a ridge and was not providing me any flat spaces to set up a tent. I eventually found a clearing where some power lines crossed the trail and struggled to get my tent erected despite the loss of feeling in my fingers. Once my tent was set up, I got my sleeping pad and sleeping bag deployed, got out of my wet clothes, and crawled into the bag for an hour to warm up. I did not even have a cell signal where I could let someone know my exact location and that I was okay. I had been in contact the previous evening, so my girlfriend knew my location within a couple of miles. The snowstorm lasted all night, and I had to spend a full 24 hours in the tent before the snow stopped. The next day, after the snow stopped, I packed up my camp and kept hiking through the 2 feet of snow. The trail crossed Skyline Drive after a short distance, and I followed that road for about 9 miles to the nearest park entrance. I called a shuttle and spent the night in Waynesboro, Virginia, at a hiker hostel. The warm shower, boot dryer, and warm food were exquisite. When you make an error in judgment in the wilderness, the goal is to survive long enough to learn from your mistake. I learned my lesson. I will not take chances when dealing with precipitation and cold weather. If there is any doubt, I will just hunker down and wait for the wet weather to pass. Story 6. Enraged drivers. When someone follows you in traffic and antagonizes you for whatever reason, do not think you can handle it on your own and do not wait for them to leave you alone. Call the police and let them handle it. And for the love of all that is holy, do not do anything to anger them even more. Story 7. I worked in an emergency department at a major trauma center, and the number of otherwise healthy people who came in paralyzed or soon to be dead from falling off ladders was eye-opening. Story 8. Drowsy driving. Estimated time of arrival. Back in 2015, I had an incident where I fell asleep behind the wheel. It was in mid-August, and I had fallen asleep on my way home from work after a 16-hour night shift because my job messed up the schedule. We couldn't work more than 12 hours in a single shift. All I remember is I was driving, then I was waking up in a hospital 4 hours away from home. No clue where I was or what happened. I had suffered a major traumatic brain injury and have been mentally different ever since. I had a pretty major concussion following the accident. It happened on the back roads of southern Idaho, and I was lucky to have come out of it with 0 broken bones. Everyone at the hospital was saying I was lucky to have survived. There were witnesses who saw the whole wreck, a couple of high schoolers on their lunch. I read the police report and witness statements, and according to them, my car rolled 6.5 times, ended wheels up, and I was partially ejected, lying half in and half out of the car through the window. My seatbelt buckle had broken as the car was coming to rest. Story 9. My health. Getting older, you rediscover all those old hurts. When I was 20, I hyperextended both elbows playing volleyball. 15 years later, my elbows started aching in the winter. Also, my teeth. It falls under health, but not everyone thinks about the dentist when they think about health. If you are reading this, please floss. It's a small thing that can make a huge difference later. Trust me. Story 10. Meth ruined my life for a while, and I had to fight tooth and nail to get it back. 18 months clean. For real, when you hear not to try meth, not even once, heed that warning. Story 11. Chickens while there are chicks present. My brother is a cruel little person who liked being mean to animals while we were kids. He liked hurting them for the feeling of power it gave him, so he hurt a lot of small wildlife like frogs, garter snakes, and mice. When that stopped being enough, he decided to go after livestock. We had chickens. There was a great big rooster and his hens, and all of them had chicks. My job was to take care of the chickens, feed them, give them water, collect eggs, etc. My brother was bigger and stronger than me, so one day he decided to have fun and grabbed one of the little chicks in the coop, squeezing it until it started to scream for help. My attempts to stop him did nothing. Now, the chickens were used to me picking up the chicks and petting them, so they weren't alarmed when my brother picked up the chick. However, when it screamed, all hell broke loose. All the chickens went after him, going for his face and eyes. The rooster had spurs on his legs over an inch long, and he cut big grooves on my brother's face, missing his eyes by millimeters. They swarmed him and bullied him until he dropped the chick and ran out of the coop, crying with blood on his face. He was 10 at the time and should have known better. Did he stop being mean to animals? No. Did they punish him for it when they could? The animals sure did. Chickens are very much like the cuckoos in the Legend of Zelda games. If you hurt one, they will all swarm you. Yes, my brother and I were both abused by our father. Our mother was a kind woman who did her best to nurture and discipline my brother. She died when I was 7 years old and my brother was 9 from cancer. My father went off the deep end and took out his rage on us both. He worked 2 shifts at a factory daily and did not want to be disturbed when home, or he would beat us. So no, there was no adult supervision, and we were left to our own devices except for a weekend here and there when our maternal grandmother would have us. She also did her best, but our father excused and enabled my brother's behavior because he was more valuable in his eyes compared to me, a sickly girl. We did go to school. Yes, Child Protective Services were called a couple of times, and my father told everyone that I was a pathological liar, so nothing came of it. My brother most likely had a genetic flaw or some inherited mental health disorder that kept him from feeling empathy. However, our father did not believe in mental health services, so my brother never got therapy or help. I fully believe he would have turned out to be a different person if he had these services. Instead, he was isolated, abused, and enabled. It made him entitled and gave him the need to exert his will over everyone. If he wanted something, he simply took it, including my innocence. He grew up into a terrible adult. No, he didn't kill anyone. I don't believe he would kill anyone because he likes to manipulate people, and you can't manipulate a dead person. He instead became a thief, a rapist, and fell hard into drug use. The last time I spoke to him was in 2013. I have fully cut him off from my life and have not spoken to him since. Maybe he has changed in these 10 years, but I have no way of knowing. Once in a while, I scan obituaries looking for his name, but otherwise, I have nothing to do with him. I acknowledge that he had a messed up beginning like I did. However, he willfully chose to hurt me and has never apologized or acknowledged what he did to me, even as adults. I may have forgiven him if he had at least acknowledged what he did was wrong. But he believes he did nothing wrong. So for my health and safety, I chose to cut him out. I have diagnosed complex post-traumatic stress disorder that I will have for the rest of my life. However, I spent the last decade in therapy learning how to cope and live with what happened to me. Some days are better than others, but I am genuinely happy and am in a safe place, several states away, and surrounded by my friends who have become my new loving family. So yes, I'm okay now. I don't fear him or my father coming after me because they are lazy cowards, and I'm too strong now to allow them to hurt me. If any of them contact me about giving up a kidney or a liver lobe, I will laugh in their faces and then get a restraining order. Story 12, Head Injuries. I had a friend who got into a barroom scuffle. He got knocked down and hit his head on a tiled floor. He got back up and said that's it for tonight. He lived alone and it was a Friday night. When he didn't show up for work on Monday without calling, it raised some eyebrows. When he didn't show up on Tuesday, someone went out to his place and broke in after no answer. He was dead on the kitchen floor. The doctor guessed a brain bleed. I think about him every time I see a video of someone getting knocked out. Edit. It's only been a couple of hours since I posted this comment, and I don't regret saying it, but I'm sorry for having dredged up so many sad stories. Story 13, Mental Health. Take care of your emotional state. Ladies and gentlemen, don't let go of yourself. It's never too late to get help. Living in misery actually isn't normal. Sometimes we just need a bit of help to get to a better place. Story 14, The Human Resources Frequent Flyer. It doesn't matter if you didn't do anything wrong. They will still make your work life unbearably annoying if you dare upset them. Story 15. I love cats, but I got bitten by one once. I spent 3 days in the hospital, and there were talks of amputating 2 of my fingers and maybe half of another finger. I had intense intravenous antibiotics and came out fine, but it was scary for a couple of days. Story 16, Stairs. They are deadly as hell. Those stairs will kill you. Use guardrails. My 68-year-old dad lives on the 3rd floor of an apartment complex, and I am terrified he is going to fall. I have fallen down my stairs, and my husband fell while holding our newborn. Do not mess around going downstairs. Story 17, Being careless in the shower. A few years ago, I was showering and forgot the new bottle of conditioner sitting on the counter. I slipped on some shampoo residue in a rush to get out of the shower, as I don't like cold air. I slammed my ribs against the porcelain tub, completely knocking the wind out of me. Somehow, I managed to crawl out of the shower and bathroom to reach my phone, genuinely thinking I would have to call an ambulance to take me to the hospital. Thankfully, that wasn't necessary as I laid down and caught my breath, but I had pretty bad rib pain for at least a month after, with only a tiny bruise to show for it. After that experience, I can absolutely see how falling in the shower can be dangerous. Now, I don't rush when exiting the shower, and I always bring my phone into the bathroom because that wet crawl on the floor to retrieve it was humiliating, and I'd rather not experience it again. Story 18, Nap Time. I teach swim lessons, so I'm often with the toddler and preschool set. One of the first questions I ask now when arranging a meeting time is whether the child still naps. Yes? Great. We're going to avoid that time and like 30 minutes before and after it. Trust. Story 19, Former high school wrestlers. Those who boast about how good they were at wrestling did it for 4 years. They may be very old or out of shape, but as soon as you start messing with them, you're on your back and disabled. If you see a cauliflower ear, step away. Story 20. You ever slide down a staircase on a pillow or a mattress? 10-year-old me thought going down headfirst inside a sleeping bag was a great way to increase the rush. Turns out going into shock is not fun. Story 21. Medical screening. Get the mammogram annually. Get the colonoscopy on whatever schedule you are on. I missed my 2016 mammogram. In 2017, I was fine. In 2018, I had breast cancer. Had I missed 2018 instead of 2016, I would likely be dead now. Story 22. Student loans. Only take what you need. Don't get the "oh, I'll pay this later" attitude. It will come back to bite you, and the loan companies are relentless. No one teaches a 17 to 18-year-old kid about student loans and long-term consequences. Story 23. I am an emergency room doctor and see people die or get seriously injured all the time. In no particular order, these are the things I am afraid of that I never would have considered dangerous before. Trampolines, ladders, coil springs, routers, large spinning machinery and gloves, carbon monoxide, acetaminophen, fentanyl, scuba diving, cat bites, poor quality car jacks, a seizure in an elderly person, farmers, pit bulls, swimming pools, ectopic pregnancies, pulmonary embolisms, severe asthma, lupus, type 2 diabetes, the pancreas, the esophagus, the trachea, ticks, mosquitoes, head injuries, lakes, a scorned woman, an angry drunken person, a truly psychotic person. Story 24. using Tiger Balm or Bengay, not washing hands, then urinating. Yeah, I'm never going to do that again. Ever. And to make it worse, I bet not one person here ever had anyone tell them to make sure you wash your hands right after applying, like wash them 3 or 4 times. It's like a rite of passage everyone keeps to themselves. Story 25. I was a venue manager during the Edinburgh Fringe, and a company had a bunch of weird props for an Edgar Allan Poe themed show. One of these turned out to be a glass Victorian dildo. One night, a drunken audience member knocked it over and it smashed. I went to clean it after the show ended, but overheard a performer already on the phone with the fire department saying that it contained mercury. They did not include this information in their risk assessments. The fire department came out, took a look and said, "Well, that's not mercury. We're going to have to call the biohazard team because it's an old foreign chemical that we can't safely identify." The show finished at 11:55 p.m. I couldn't leave until 3 a.m. We never found out what the mysterious substance was.